Okay, so let's move here to this is part of a series, and I mean, for those who attended the ones in the past, I mean, the process here. But quickly, we're doing those 60 minutes events in March, July, and November, which fit right in between the main CCIF events. We're doing what we call technical webinars. We had one yesterday. We're doing management sessions as well, which is this one that we are having today. And the topics are basically follow-ups from the CCIF meetings. There, we're trying to aim at the equipment, product, services, manufacturers. And it's also based a lot on your feedback and on your comments. So if you have any suggestions, or if you would like to present, you can reach out to Caroline at caroline.lacasse@ccif.ca, or you can go on the CCIF website at ccif.ca. And in the About tab, just click there and you'll find the speaker guidelines and speaker application form. So we're looking for ideas. We're looking for people that are willing to be part of that and present. So looking for some of your suggestions here. Also, a little bit of housekeeping before we move. The microphones are all muted. I see right now we're at just reach 150 participants, so we want to make sure that we don't want to get disrupted by background noises. Use the Q&A to ask a question. So on the bottom of your screen, you got this bar there, and you got this Q&A sign. Just click on this and ask your questions along the way. I'll be monitoring this Q&A box here, and I'll make sure that I present those questions to our presenter. You can also chat with participants. So looking at the chat, you see everybody that's signed in, so you can chat directly with them if you want to. And along the way, we're going to have some polls. So you will be asked to participate here and provide us with some feedback. So it's important that you do so. So we probably have 2 or 3 this morning. So watch for them. They're going to be on your screen. We're going to wait for your feedback on this. Also, this session is being recorded, and it will be available on demand at ccif.ca. Just give us a couple of days to do some final edits, and then we can have it there, and you guys can participate. All of this is very important. Could not be wouldn't happen if we wouldn't have the support of all of our sponsors. So a big thank you to all those sponsors appearing on your screen right now. I mean, this is important. We couldn't do anything without them. That's the mission of the CCIF, and they're all supportive of that. And believe me, it's tough for them right now. It is tough for them to help. I know I'm actually one of those supporters, and it's not easy, but we're doing it for the right reasons, and we're happy that you are here. I mean, in big numbers to attend this webinar, because that's what the CCIF is all about. So, moving to the session today. So. Today's session title is OEM repair procedure, and who else but the best person to do this? So Mike Anderson from Collision Advice is going to be presenting, and I know that he's probably getting a little bit of help here from Tracy Dombrowski, also from Collision Advice. So quickly on Mike, and believe me, this is the short version of the short version of Mike's bio here. So quickly, Mike's a former multi-shop owner. He's familiar with OE certifications because he had a few of them when he had his shops. Probably one of the first one to get into this. And Mike's an accredited master automotive manager through the AMI, which is the Automotive Management Institute. Past director of Automotive Service Association Collision Operations Division. Long-serving member of the board of directors of the Washington Metropolitan Automotive Association, and oh my God, member of the CIC, SCRS, National Auto Body Council. Wow, and that's the short version. So Mike's been very present. Mike has come to Canada many times. He's been doing business council and leading focus groups. So wow. So this is fantastic, and Mike's also a friend of mine. I have to admit that, and I'm happy that he is my friend as well. So hey, Mike, this is your show now, so take it away, my friend.
All right, thank you, Patrice. Let me see if I can go ahead and share my screen and work through this. So let's see if this works, and I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. So Patrice, thank you so much for the kind words. And to all of my friends in Canada, thank you so much for the honor and the privilege of being able to share my insights and passion with you. And I would like to take a moment and introduce my teammate, Tracy Dombrowski. And Tracy is an instructional design expert, and she has worked with me to help us build the some of the technical content that we produce and we actually take and facilitate on behalf of several OEMs such as Toyota and Lexus, Nissan, Infiniti, Honda, Acura, and others. So Tracy, thank you for joining me. So let's go ahead and jump right into this today. I think obviously, Patrice, you guys always cover antitrust guidelines. So I just understand, I'm not going to read this verbatim, but any pricing that comes up during this is strictly for seminar purposes only. Anything you see in the sample estimate we're going to share is for seminar purposes only, and we're in no way suggesting that's what you should charge. So just wanted to get that out of the way. So, recently I wrote an article for an industry trade publication in the United States. And what I did was I said, there's actually another global pandemic that no one's talking about. And it wasn't COVID. I believe we are facing another global pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. And that newsflash is this, that all parties are uneducated about what is needed for a safe and proper repair. And when I say all parties, I mean insurance appraisers as well as collision repair facility estimators or appraisers. I believe that the majority of our industry, right, and I mean this in love, understand the intent of my heart is I'm not being condescending, I'm not being mean-spirited, and I'm going to show you why I believe this in just a moment. But I believe that many, many people, if not most, are very uneducated about what it takes to repair a vehicle safely and properly after it has been in an accident. Now, I get the opportunity in the United States as well as Canada. So a shout out to my friend Paul Stella in Canada. I get the opportunity to conduct estimate training on behalf of Toyota and Lexus. In addition, my company produces and gets to the opportunity to provide estimate training for Nissan Infiniti, as well as for Patrice and Exalta Coating Systems, right? So what I have found is that when we conduct estimate training, we actually ask people, we send them photos of a Toyota Camry, and we ask them to write an estimate to replace a quarter panel on a Toyota Camry. And ladies and gentlemen, what I'm showing you is some actual data, right? So we at Collision Advice wrote an estimate based on what it takes to do a safe and proper repair, okay? And you will see right here that in body labor hours, and we wrote in the CCC, which is in the United States as an estimating system we have, we also wrote in autotext and Mitchell. And you will see that on our estimate, we had almost 80 hours in body labor hours. And we took all these shops names out of here, right? And this was the average body labor hours from 20 some people that took our class. And you can see there's a huge discrepancy here. Now I'm going to go to the next slide, and this was more alarming to me that when we did this estimate, we did this training, right? And we've probably taught, I would say, since COVID started, virtually. Tracy, what do you think? We've probably taught close to 2,000 estimators or 1,200, something like that. So understand this is a huge sampling size. And look at this on mechanical labor hours or operations on the estimate. This is what we had in autotext and Mitchell versus this is what shops had that wrote their estimate. You'll see paint labor hours. And we also compare by total labor hours, number of lines. But ladies and gentlemen, what I want to do is I want to give you an example. And this is, we have this estimate we wrote both in Mitchell and autotext. I'm going to play a video for you. And this is the estimate to replace a quarter panel on a 2019 Toyota Camry with everything on there that Toyota says you need to do at a TIS. Now I'm going to jump forward in this and fast forward this a bit. So please bear with me. All right. So again, we wrote this in Mitchell. And you'll see that it starts to scroll down a little bit, right? And I'm going to go ahead and jump forward a little bit on this for you. Again, this was 2019 Toyota Camry. Now, one of the things that we like to do when we write an estimate, we like to put our torque specifications on the estimate. And yes, this webinar is about OEM repair procedures, but just bear with me because this estimate is going to set the stage for why OEM repair procedures are so important. We like to put on there, for example, our torque specs so that the technician knows how to torque the bolts properly. We like to put line notes, of any one-time use parts, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this estimate, and I want you to look at this estimate. This is everything that needs to be done, and I'm just jumping through in this video. Now, I recognize that some of this may be frictional points, things that are maybe not included operations like feather, prime, and block. But I understand that, right? But let's just take that out of the equation. And let's just think about all the things that are necessary, like the precautions when you disconnect a battery, seatbelt inspections. Ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to understand is this estimate had over 383 lines on the estimate. 383 lines, right? Just on this estimate. Now, I want to ask you a question, and this is a polling question, right, to kind of kick us off. Just to write an estimate to replace a quarter panel on a 2019 Toyota Camry, I want us to launch the poll if we could, Larissa. How many repair procedure documents do you think we had to actually research to pull to write an estimate on a 2019 Toyota Camry? So this is not pages. This is just how many documents. Like, keep in mind, right? We had to R&I the bumper. We had to R&I the tail light, replace the quarter panel. We had to R&I the deck lid in order to replace the quarter panel. How many actual documents or procedures do you think we had to research? And I'll be really interested to see what you have. So Larissa, I guess, has that poll been launched? All right, I'm waiting for the answers to come in here. So how many do you think? Was it 0 to 25, 26 to 50, 51 to 75, 76 to 100, 101 to 125? How many repair procedures do you think were researched just to replace a quarter panel on a 2019 Toyota Camry? Okay, so Larissa, do we have some final results? So 14% of the attendees said there were 0 to 25 documents. 30% said there were 26 to 50 documents. 30% said there were 51 to 75 documents. And 20% said there were 76 to 100 documents. And 8% said there were more than 100 documents. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll allow me to give you the drum roll, I will share this with you. Ladies and gentlemen, there were 98 procedures that we had to pull to replace a quarter panel on a 2019 Toyota Camry. Now, some of these documents had 10 pages. Some of these documents had 1 page. Some of these documents had 3 pages. What we found was it was an average of 5 pages per document. So, ladies and gentlemen, that equated that there were 490 total pages that we had to actually read and review on how to just replace a quarter panel. 490, right? Now, let's just take this a step further, right? I'm gonna ramp it up a little bit now, Patrice. Let's take this a step further. How long do you all think it takes an average person to read a 1-page technical document? Oh yeah, we're gonna do another poll on you right now, boys and girls, my friends, guys and gals. How long do you think it takes an average person to read a 1-page technical document? All right, let's go ahead and launch that poll. 1 to 2 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 minutes or more, right? To read a 1-page technical document. I'm really anxious to see what your answers are here. So we're launching this poll, and Larissa will close it out here in a few moments. And Tracy, talk to me, girl. How many documents did we say we had to pull just to replace?
490.
490 pages, y'all. And how long do you think it takes someone to read a 1-page technical document? Larissa, let's see those poll results, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, 6% of y'all said 1 to 2 minutes. 32% of everybody said 3 to 4 minutes. 33% said 5 to 6 minutes. 15% said 7 to 8 minutes. And 16% said 9 minutes or more. Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you the answers. Ladies and gentlemen, in technical material, it takes the average person 50 to 75 words a minute, which is roughly how many words would be on a page on an 8.5 by 11 page document, 5 to 6 minutes per page. So let's think about this, right? Ladies and gentlemen, there were 490 total pages of documents that we had to review to replace a quarter panel on a 2019 Toyota Camry. Let's say it's an average of 5 minutes per page. That's 2,450 minutes. That means just to review all of the OEM repair procedures to replace a quarter panel on a 2019 Toyota Camry, if the average person was reading those documents, that's 40 hours and 50 minutes for that one repair. Now, keep in mind, that's just for the estimator to review it so they write a good repair plan. But think about the technician also has to review it, right? Now, here's the deal. Are there some of these documents that you need to read every single time? No, I will give you that as you get experience, you learn what to look for, right? And there's some things you can skim over a little bit. But ladies and gentlemen, here's the point. Which of this are we not going to read? I mean, literally, is this like, where you're like playing blackjack and you want to see which card the dealer flips over next? Because ladies and gentlemen, that was 40 hours and 50 minutes for that one repair plan. So ladies and gentlemen, let's talk today about number one is why should you research OEM repair procedures? Well, first of all, you don't know what you don't know. We at Collision Advice have a saying, and that saying is learn to research, research to learn. Now, if you were with me in person and I was on a stage at CCIF, Patrice, I'd make everybody sing this like a chant. Learn to research, research to learn, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to learn to use the OEM repair procedures. And then we've got to use the OEM repair procedures to learn how to fix the car properly. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, one of the biggest things that scares me about our industry is sometimes we become very prideful and we think that we know it all and we don't have to research every OEM repair procedure. And that's a mistake. And I'm going to show you why here in just a moment. Let's talk about something as simple as disconnecting a battery, right? Now, most, if not all OEM manufacturers, just so y'all know this, most, if not all OEM repair procedures, right, say that you need to disconnect a battery before you disconnect any electrical component. So if I'm going to unplug a headlight or I'm going to unplug a mirror, I got to disconnect the battery first. A very simple thing. Disconnect the battery. And I'll guarantee you 99.9999% of technicians and estimators, if I say, hey, do you want me to research this procedure for how to disconnect the battery? Some technician's going to blow me off and they'll say, man, I've taken 100 batteries off. If you got to research how to take a number 13 or number 10 bolt off of a battery, you shouldn't be in the business. I've had people talk smack to me like that, right? But let me just show you a couple things when it comes to disconnecting batteries. For all of those of you that think you know everything, right? Check this out. This is an Audi. Look what Audi says. Audi says when the battery is reconnected, the following steps must be performed. Activate the one-touch up and down function for the mirror. For the window. And check DTC memories of all control modules and delete the displayed entry under voltage using the vehicle diagnostic tester. Right there says I got to hook up a scan tool. And what I got to do is I got to clear all of the lost communication codes. And by the way, for those of you using aftermarket scan tools, you're not going to be able to do this. That's why you need to use OEM scan tools. So for those of you that have disconnected 1,000, batteries, did you know Audi has a very specific procedure? Let's look at General Motors right here. Look at General Motors. General Motors has right here on a Chevy Cruze. General Motors has a document. It says battery negative cable disconnection and connection procedure. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 7-page document of what I need to do when I disconnect and reconnect a battery. 7 pages. And look what one of these pages says. It says when you disconnect and reconnect the battery, you need to program the volatile memory and inform the customer that the stop-start feature will not be available until the vehicle is allowed to sit for at least 3 hours undisturbed. So let me ask you a question. Are you telling the customer this when they pick up their vehicle? Or are you just assuming they're going to do it? Look right here. This is Chevy Equinox. Look at this one right here. Now, this one has OnStar on it, right? This Chevy Equinox has OnStar. And look what it says right here. It says if the vehicle's equipped with OnStar, there are certain things you need to do before you disconnect the battery so you don't trigger a call from OnStar where the vehicle owner ends up getting a bunch of emails saying there's a problem with your car. And if you don't do this properly, guess what? You might end up having to buy a backup battery because when you disconnected it, it goes to backup battery mode, right? So if the vehicle was in an accident, the battery got damaged or the wire got cut, it could still notify OnStar. So are you looking that up? Well, let's look at a Subaru. Look at a Subaru right here. Look at all the things on this list that Subaru says I need to do. Look right here at the top. Actions to take after removing battery, disconnecting the ground terminal. Look at all these things that I need to do if I disconnect and reconnect a battery on a Subaru. Oh, all right. Let's look at Toyota. Look what Toyota says. Toyota says right here, ladies and gentlemen, Toyota says procedures necessary when the auxiliary battery terminal is disconnected, reconnected. You need to memorize the steering angle neutral point and initialize the back door lock. And if you don't do these 2 things, guess what? These 5 things will not work. So what about now when you get some insurance company that says, well, I'm not paying to do that. Well, let me just tell you right now, these 5 things aren't going to work for the customer. But can you imagine how a body shop feels or an insurance company feels when all I'm doing is replacing a bumper cover and I got to disconnect the battery and I put something on my estimate and it says initialize back door lock. And now some insurance appraiser is wondering, why do you got to mess with the back door when all he gets is a headlight and a bumper cover? because, ladies and gentlemen, it's what happens when we disconnect the battery. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what I'm trying to tell you. Even something as simple as a battery, which we have for years disconnected, reconnected, you got to research that. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to start thinking about the OEM repair procedures like building codes. I'm sure that all of you are familiar. Like if you go to build a building, in Canada, Patrice, I'm sure there are certain standards you have to meet, right? Like you go to build a building that somebody has to come in and do an electrical inspection. If you're going to put a lift in concrete, your concrete it needs to be 6 inches or thicker, right? And
Yeah.
like I can tell you, like if you live in Florida, you got to actually, the building code is you got to have certain types of windows that are hurricane proof. If you live in Montana, there's certain types of bolts and fasteners you need to use on a roof so it will support the weight of the snow. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. OEM repair procedures are the building code for what to do to a vehicle that's been in an accident. Think about building codes. They're to provide minimum standards to protect people in the case of a fire or an earthquake or windstorm or whatever. And they ensure the structural integrity so a building doesn't collapse. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, first of all, I am very, very grateful to the people of Canada because when September 11th happened in the United States, so many people in Canada, you took in Americans into your homes and your businesses because they couldn't get back across the border. And that was a tragic day for us in the United States history, right? But here's the deal. I can tell you that the Pentagon, not as many people would have survived when the planes hit the Pentagon had it not been built to code. And ladies and gentlemen, we got to understand that every single time that we take and repair a vehicle, we have to return it back to code. And the OEM repair procedures are the standard. Now, what are some other reasons why we need to research OEM repair procedures? Tracy, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you about Tracy. Tracy is an OEM website guru, Patrice. Let me just tell you right now, shout out to the women in the industry. By the way, we need more women in the industry. Can I get an amen?
Absolutely, Mike.
We need more women in the industry. But Tracy, you've helped me to build, you've actually built the content I just presented for Toyota, Lexus, and estimating content, and Nissan Infiniti. You built some curriculum for other OEMs. Tracy, just talk to me right here, young lady. What are some other reasons why we should research OEM repair procedures, Tracy?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest reasons is it tells us where to look for damage when we're estimating the car rate. There's built-in crush zones in vehicles. They're designed to collapse in specific areas, and it explains how the inertia forces travel through the vehicle. So that's one of the biggest things. It really helps our estimating if we know how the vehicles are designed, right? Second, it really helps us make some repair versus replace decisions. It tells us what the substrates are. It tells us where we should be sectioning things. It tells us how we should be reattaching that to the vehicle, right? Rivet bonding, adhesive, how long the adhesive should dry. Like you said, it's really the building code of putting together a safe and proper repair. On a more technical side, like all the DTCs and helping to diagnose all the safety systems on the vehicle, it tells us what sets those DTCs, right? How fast does the car need to be traveling? What distance does it need to go? All those things that trigger those DTCs, because there's not a DTC that shows up for every problem on the vehicle, just like there's not a dash light that shows up for every problem. So it really can help us troubleshoot those systems. And one of the biggest things, which I know we'll talk about later, Mike, is it really gives us some refinish precautions. That's one of the biggest areas I think people miss and don't research, right? I could probably go on and on. There's way more things than we could ever cover in this webinar, but that's just some of the ones that I think are really useful.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you one other thing. And for those of you attending this webinar, here's something else Tracy and I learned, right? And like Tracy said, we're not going to be able to cover, there's no way we could possibly humanly cover every single thing about OEM websites and procedures during this webinar. But one of the things we have learned is that when you're looking for bumper precautions, like can you fix a bumper cover or not? Like, to find out, hey, can I fix a bumper cover if it has a blind spot monitor? Guess what? You generally do not find that under the bumper section. You find that under which section, Tracy? So if I'm trying to determine can I fix a bumper cover, like a rear bumper cover that has blind spot monitors, what section is that under, Tracy? Because it's not under the bumper section.
No, it's going to be with the blind spot monitor information, with the ADAS information for that vehicle. So it's really key to know where you need to look as well.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that we've given you evidence as to why you need to research OEM repair procedures, right? So the next thing that we're going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, is, when should you research OEM repair procedures? Well, I can tell you right now, at Collision Advice, we believe you should research the OEM repair procedures every single vehicle, every year, every make, every model, every single time. Because I'm going to tell you why, because things change. I can give you an example. There's one OEM manufacturer, and I won't say their name, But in 1 year, they changed the way you put a bedside on 4 times in 1 year, right? I can tell you of another OEM manufacturer that they did not have a sectioning procedure for a quarter panel, and you actually had to replace the roof. Then they came out with a sectioning procedure. So things change, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why you got to research every single vehicle, every single make, every single model, every single time. So when should you do it? Every vehicle, right? Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and I don't know if you've noticed, Patrice, but we kind of got a theme here: the who, what, why, when, where, how of OEM repair procedures.
I can see that.
All right, so that comes with Tracy. So now we're going to go into who should research OEM repair procedures. So in our company, Collision and Vice in the United States, we actually do surveys called Who Pays for What every quarter. We tried doing these in Canada, and we just couldn't get more than like 30 shops to take our surveys. But we do these surveys for free in the United States. We make the results available for free, right? And one of the things we surveyed in the United States was, who in your shop is primarily responsible for researching home repair procedures? And we saw that like 49% of the shops felt like it was the estimator or blueprinter's job. 31% said, hey, the estimator technician, they kind of do it together. I will tell you what we're seeing grow in the United States is that 8% of shops said they have a designated person, right? And we're going to talk about the benefits of that in a moment. 5% said they have a parts person do it, and 2% said only the technicians. But here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Who's going to research home repair procedures? I will tell you, who researches them is one thing, but who needs to be reviewing them should be every estimator and every technician, including the painter. And we're going to show you that why in just a few moments. Now, here's what I do believe. We are seeing a trend where some people are having a designated person to research home repair procedures. Now, there are some advantages to this, right? I will tell you, when it comes to using the OEM websites, repetition is key. Repetition is key. So if you've got a designated person, they become much more familiar with how to find the information. And as they get more familiar with it, guess what? They have speed efficiencies. The other advantage to having a designated person is you don't have your body technician stopping to look something up, right? Which is loss of production. Now, the disadvantage of having a designated person is they still have to share this information with everybody else. And if they don't find everything, then that is a negative impact. Also, if you have a designated person, until they get that learning curve of unlearning how to use the different websites, they may not always know what needs to be researched. And obviously it's an additional admin cost, right? So now you're paying that's another admin person that we've got to have in our staff. So there are some advantages and disadvantages. So the next thing we want to talk about is how to research home repair procedures. So in the United States, again, we did a survey, and I have to believe these statistics would be pretty similar in Canada, right? And that is, we surveyed, and by the way, we have 28,000 people in our database in the United States, right? And we usually end up about anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 people that we get survey results back from. So it's pretty good sampling size. But we asked shops, how frequently do you research home repair procedures? Now, in 2015, you will see that only 16% of the people said all the time, right? 2020, that's grown to 19%. 26% in 2015 said most of the time. That grew to 32%. But let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. How often should we be researching home repair procedures? The reality is it should be all the time. I will tell you, I'm very concerned. And again, when I got back and I said we have a larger pandemic, the reason I believe there's a larger pandemic is because people are not researching every single vehicle, every single year, make and model, every single time. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a concern for me. Now, we're going to do another polling question here for you. And I'd like to know what my friends and family in Canada, what's your primary source? And then notice I said your primary source. What's your primary source that you use to research home repair procedures? And we're going to launch a polling question here. Is it all data? Do you subscribe directly to the OEM websites? Do you use Mitchell's Tech Advisor? Do you use Sun? Do you use Auto Explorer's Tech Focus? Or do you have another option? So let's just give a few seconds here. And let's go ahead and let's just put in here and the polling question, and let's see what kind of answers. And by the way, Patrice, I normally talk really, really fast during my webinars, but I'm attempting to try to talk a little slower this webinar. I have a hard time being passionate and excited when I'm talking slow. Right?
No, you're doing good, Mike.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're doing very good, Mike. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's see what these polling questions come up with. And Larissa, whenever you get a chance, man, and you show those results, ma'am, I would be anxious to see what everyone's using to research home repair procedures in Canada. All right, let's see. Oh, wow. So 57% of shops said we're using all data. Okay, wow. And 31% said they're going to the OEM websites directly. 31% Mitchell's Tech Advisor. And then 1% Sun and 3% Auto Explorer. So y'all can see the results, right? So it's just very interesting for me to see exactly what sources you're using, right? So let's talk about this a little bit, right? We pretty much have the same similar results in the United States, right? 72% of shops, or the majority, are using all data, 51% the automobile manufacturer's website. So again, we have CCC, which you all don't have, but our results are very, very similar, right? So again, here's what I will tell you. It's very encouraging to me to see more shops using the OEM websites directly. And there are some pros and cons of using like All Data or Mitchell versus the OEM websites. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, right? And please understand, I am not here to endorse any product. I am not here to be disparaging about any product. All I'm here to do is give you factual information for you to make the best educated decision for your business model, right? So understand, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to research every single vehicle every single time because things change. I've seen parts that were one-time use that I can tell you, for example, 2009 Toyota Corolla used to be when you R9'd the airbag, like to up in the headliner area to weld a quarter panel on. It was a one-time use and it was like a $300 or $400 part. Paul Stella saw that from Toyota Canada. He contacted the engineers and they came out with some clips and it's no longer a one-time use part. So things change, ladies and gentlemen. So let me give you a little overview of my personal experience of the pros and cons of using OEM factory websites, right? Versus, like OEM websites to like Toyota's TIS or Nissan's Tech Info, right? Or Volkswagen's Irwin versus using third-party software like All Data or Mitchell Autotext, right? So first of all, let's talk about the OEM software, which is referred to as an ESM or electronic service manual. The pro is that it's always going to have the most recent information. I mean, you can't go wrong with an OEM website. It's got the most accurate, most recent information. And when they make changes, you get it in real time. Now, depending on the OEM manufacturer, some OEMs, and again, I'll just use like Toyota's TIS as an example, or Volkswagen's Irwin, you have access to the build data. That means when you put the VIN number in, it's going to tell you, here's all the options or components or, all the options and standard equipment that's on that vehicle, right? So just so you understand, that's another benefit of using the OEM website directly. The other benefit of using an OEM website directly is that it may integrate with an OEM scan tool. With OEM websites, you have the ability to submit inquiries. So if you have a question or you can't find what you're looking for, or you disagree with something, you can actually send a question directly to the OEM. Now, a negative side of the OEM websites is they don't integrate with your estimating system. So it's not like it can pull the lines from your estimate in Mitchell or Autotext and analyze your estimate and give you suggestions. So a negative or a con would be is that it does not integrate with the estimating systems. Another negative or con of the OEM websites is that, how you find something in Audi is different than Porsche, which is different than Subaru, which is different than General Motors, which is different than Toyota, right? So it's not standardized. So, you're going to have to learn each website individually. Another benefit, and this is going to become more of a benefit in the future, is with the OEM websites, they can identify for you if a vehicle is connected to the internet, like GM's OnStar or Toyota's Safety Connect. And that's important because you have to place it in service mode before you disconnect the vehicle or just start to disassemble it. The other benefit of an OEM factory website is that it will identify one-time use parts for you. Now let's talk about third-party software like All Data, Autotext, or Mitchell, right? Third-party software, I'm just being honest, it's not meant to be disparaging. I mean this in love, but they will not always be current, right? See, and that's not always their fault because some of the OEMs don't tell All Data, Mitchell, Autotext when they made a change. They don't tell them. So it's up to, Autotext, Mitchell, or All Data to have to kind of figure that out on their own. So it may not always have the most current information, just being honest. None of your third-party solutions are ever going to have access to the build data. Now, third-party software also will not integrate with an OEM scan tool. Now, it may, like Mitchell, they have a scan tool solution, and I'm sure that their own repair procedures tie into that. I'm sure All Data ties into some, All Data has some third-party aftermarket scan tool solutions. So it integrate with their scan tool solutions, but not an OEM scan tool. Another benefit of third-party software is just like the OEMs, you have the ability to submit inquiries. Now, I will tell you that All Data generally has like a 30-minute or less response time. So if you can't find what you're looking for and you submit it, I believe Mitchell is 2 hours or less in the US. I have to believe it's the same in Canada. The biggest benefit of like All Data or Mitchell or Autotext is they integrate with your estimating system. So it analyzes your estimate and comes back and says, here's some things you need to look at, right? Also, another benefit of the third-party software is they do attempt to standardize things like All Data. They try to put things, they have a section that says repairs and inspections required after a collision. So All Data, Mitchell, and Autotext attempt to standardize things. That's a benefit. A negative of these third-party solutions is they cannot identify telematics subscriptions, and they may not identify all of your one-time use parts. So there are some huge differences between the OEM websites directly and third-party software. Now, Tracy, I know that you've had a lot of experience working with OEM websites, and it looks like we're gonna have to pick the pace up a little bit because we're running behind on time. So Tracy, why don't you share with some insights with everybody in regards to some of the things they can do when it comes to looking up OEM repair procedures?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, like we mentioned, in order to speed up the process is experience. So knowing when to look, where to look, what you're looking for, and how to look things up in the procedures, that really can save the most time. There's a lot of resources that are available to help them do that. So I know iCar has video tips on their website, like you see on the screen, where they show you how to navigate, log in, access different types of information. Collision advice, Mike and I have both done learn to research, research to learn webinars for the OEMs to help you learn how to navigate and how to find different information within their information. And I know also the OEMs offer either e-learning modules that you can take or in-person training or webinars for their certified shops to help you learn how to find things in their repair procedures.
Yeah, so there's Tracy, thank you. So understand, ladies, repetition is your biggest teacher, right? Just experience. But iCar has some great tips. And as Tracy shared, if you go to our collision advice website, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm just going to fast forward on this in the essence of time. But when you go to our website and you scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see a YouTube link. And I apologize, I'm going to go back here just a little bit. And you're going to see a playlist right here that says OEM webinars, learn to research, research to learn. If you click on that, you will see over to the right-hand side, we have all these 90-minute webinars that we've built. These are all free, don't cost you anything, teach you how to use Volkswagen's website, Nissan's website, Subaru's website, FCA's website, etc. So again, you can use that, okay? Now, Tracy, what are some other considerations? This is one of the biggest things I learned when I started using the OEM websites, right? I'd call Tracy and I'd be like, Tracy, man, my Toyota Tis isn't working. And first thing she'd ask me is, Mike, are you logged in under Internet Explorer? And I'm like, no. All right. So it's usually user error. So Tracy, share some things with people that they need to understand when it comes to using the OEM websites.
Definitely. OEMs have built their systems on very specific browsers, and the favorite seems to be Internet Explorer, which is no longer supported, right? So many OEMs are coming out with procedures to access those through Edge, but they do require some setup. You need to have pop-ups disabled and things like that. So definitely check with the OEMs to find out if they have specific browser requirements. One of the things I was really sad about is a lot of OEMs come with a free subscription to their website. But I know, like Honda was talking to us, they can actually see how many Pro First shops use and log into their subscription of SIS. And believe it or not, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of shops that have never accessed the OE repair procedures directly, even though they get a free subscription. So definitely check your OEM certification, see if it comes with a free subscription that you can utilize. Again, experience is key. You know, each OEM organize their information slightly different. So become familiar with the information that's in each tab or each section of the vehicle. This can really help you save time and know where to look for the information you're trying to find. Again, knowing where to find vehicle recalls is key. And again, it varies by OEM website.
Yep. So great. So absolutely, the biggest thing I will tell you is if you ever can get an OEM website to work directly, it's probably because you're logged into the wrong browser or you don't have pop-ups disabled. I've just seen that across multiple platforms. But go ahead, Tracy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I mean, the other thing I was going to say, Mike, is that I think it's key to understand is a lot of OEMs have what they call like a basic body repair manual. And this manual gives like the basics of how they assume you're going to repair a vehicle, right? It's really basic. Like it assumes you haven't touched a car before in a lot of situations. And the only things that they put in the detailed repair procedures are what vary from that basic body repair manual, right? So it's only pointing out the differences. And I think a lot of people are looking for justification for things that could be found in that body repair manual. So it's a wealth of information. I highly recommend you take a look at that.
All right, great insights, Tracy. Thank you. Tracy, I know one of the things is when we started working with some of the OEM websites, I learned about a term called, and I may pronounce this wrong. Is it Boolean? Boolean?
It's called a Boolean search.
Boolean search. Okay.
Yeah, so what that means is you can add key like terms like and or and not in your search parameters, and it'll help either narrow the search or expand the search to help you find what you're looking for. So if you put and between two words, it's going to look for those two words together. So example, if you're trying to find a steering column, if you do steering and column, it's only going to pull things that have steering column together. If you do or, it's going to find either things with steering or with column. So it broadens the search. If you wanted to find something related to steering, but not the steering column, you could put steering, not column, and it would only pull up items that have steering in them. And then in some OEM procedures, if you wanted to find steering column together, you could put quotes around it and would only pull up things that have those together. Yep. I think another key thing, Mike, that you may not be aware of is that different sites search, like we wish everything was Google, right? You just plug in a term and it pulls up the option in any document, but that's not how a lot of OEMs have built their systems. A lot of them only search the document title. I think Honda's SIS system does search for that term within the document, but you really need to know how they have their search set up.
Gotcha. Great. So ladies and gentlemen, it's important when you go to use an OEM website that you understand how to use the search feature, right? Because again, understanding how to use these combination of words like steering and column or steering or column or steering not column, that's going to be really, really critical for you to find things quick and efficiently. The other thing is understand that different OEMs call parts different names. And again, Tracy and I are going to have to pick up the pace a little bit, but Tracy, can you share with us real quick? And this is a great terminology matrix that iCar provides. So Tracy, can you share a little bit about this matrix?
Yeah, again, so iCar did a lot of the legwork looking up different terms that are used for different parts of the vehicle, but like we'll just use quarter panel for an example, right? So it's not always referred to as a quarter panel. It could be a rear side panel. It could be a rear side outer panel, but knowing the term that the OEM uses can really help you with your searching. Otherwise, you're searching for a quarter panel and nothing's pulling up, and it's frustrating when they call it a rear side panel, right? So this can really help streamline your searches.
Yep, great insights, Tracy. Thank you. So now we're
probably, Mike, just before you continue here, I would just like to point that those slides are going to be available for you graciously going to share those slides, and we're going to make them available for the people to review. So
absolutely,
just wanted to point this one out.
Yeah, thank you, Patrice. Yeah, this presentation or PDF is available to anyone, and feel free to share it. So thank you, Patrice. So now we're going to get down to really the most important thing which is what to research in the repair procedures. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, there is no simple solution. There's just way too much for us to cover in this session. However, I'll tell you some critical areas that you need to be researching all the time. Number one is your battery disconnect and reconnect procedures. Number two is something called the damage diagnosis document. That is going to tell you where to look for damage at, right? So if a vehicle's in an accident, how did the engineers design that vehicle to divert the inertia forces? You always need to look and see what a substrate's made out of so you can figure out if you can repair it or you got to replace it. Seatbelt inspections is a critical area you need to research. Steering column inspections, SRS inspections, electrical vehicle refinish cure times. Yes, you heard me right. A lot of your electric vehicles are going to have cure time precautions that say you cannot exceed a certain temperature or a certain amount of time in the spray booth. Structural adhesive cure times is another thing. Tracy, anything else you can think of? These are some of the key critical terms that I like to look up.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's two more. One, you hit on it earlier, right? So your bumper repair precautions, I think, is key these days. And the second one I would add is the steering rack or gear assembly inspections. Those are becoming more popular as well.
Absolutely. So ladies and gentlemen, let me just kind of buckle you up a little bit. So buckle up your seatbelt because here we go. So let's say, for example, I'm going to write an estimate. I think it's got unibody damage. First thing I'm going to look up from a structural repair standpoint is how is that specific vehicle designed to divert the inertia forces? Once I figure out where it's designed to divert the inertia forces at, then I do 100% disassembling. Let's say I find damage. Now I got to figure out what's that substrate made out of. Once I know what that substrate's made out of, I need to research, can that component be repaired or does it need to be replaced? And then I need to look up things like how can I properly anchor the vehicle? You know, do I need to remove all the undercoating and seams there off the pinch welds? We might got to look up any welding precautions, like no welding within 18 inches on a Toyota or Lexus, but no welding within 12 inches, which I think is 300 centimeters on a Fiat Chrysler vehicle. We got to find out, is structural adhesive used anywhere? And if so, what's the cure time? And are there any requirements for weld through primer? So let me give you an example of how we do this as an estimator, right? How do I figure out where to look for damage at? Well, let's say I'm writing an estimate on a Toyota Camry. What I would do is in Toyota's TIS, they have something called a damage diagnosis document. It tells me this is how this 2018 Toyota Camry was designed to divert the inertia forces. You look right here, it says, look, if the inertia forces are coming from this direction, this is the way this specific year vehicle make and model is designed to divert the inertia forces. In each one of these areas is a crush zone on where I need to inspect for damage. All right, so now I go through and I find damage. The next thing I do is find out what's a substrate made out of. Well, for example, I go into Volkswagen's Irwin, it's going to tell me it's color coded. Here's what every substrate is and what the substrate's made out of. And I know I can't repair anything 980 or higher. So now all of a sudden I know I got to replace this. I can't repair it. So how do I find out if I can repair or replace? Again, some of your OEMs like Ford, Honda, and others are going to have these matrices. They're going to tell you if the part can be repaired or does it have to be replaced. And then if I have to replace it, now I'm going to look up my sectioning procedures. So there's a whole thought process here on how I'm using the OEM repair procedures, right? Now let's talk about electric vehicles a little bit. Electric vehicles, you know, Tracy, I know that you were an electric vehicle owner. You had a Prius, I believe, right? So at the end of the day, electric vehicles, ladies and gentlemen, are becoming a growing market share. One of the things I'm going to tell you is you must look up your refinish precautions. Look right here. This is it. And I want to give a shout out to Scott with Audi up in Canada because he's the one that taught me this, right? Look right here. Is there anything special to do when an Audi high voltage vehicle must be brought into the paint shop? Yeah, it cannot exceed a certain temperature in a certain time in the spray booth. Look right there, right? Let's look right here at an Acura. Acura, high temperatures may damage the battery module. When drying paint in a heated paint booth, make sure the temperature doesn't exceed 65 degrees Celsius. Look at BMW, electric vehicle. Vehicle may not be kept in a spray booth or dryer for more than 2 hours at 60 degrees Celsius. Look at a Chevy Volt. Can't exceed 60 minutes at 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 71 degrees Celsius. It'll damage the battery. Look at this Fiat Chrysler right here. It says when I go to paint this electric Fiat 500e, that the battery cannot have more than a 20% state of charge. It says if it has more than 20% and I put it in the spray booth, it'll damage the battery. So what do I need to do? It says I got to drive the vehicle around in circles with all the accessories turned on until I run the battery down to 20%. Look right here at a Ford Fusion. Again, it's got a very specific temperature and a very specific cure time. Here's one on a Honda Acura. Here's one on a Hyundai. Here's one on a Kia. Here's one on a Nissan Leaf. Nissan Leaf says the outer rocker can't exceed a specific temperature. So what I got to do is I got to make sure I check the temperature on that, and I'm going to have to remove my rocker cover so I can actually check the temperature on the metal rocker panel. Here's a Porsche, ladies and gentlemen. They have a very specific cure time and temperature. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going through this rather quickly because I want to create awareness for you. But on electric vehicles, you need to be researching your paint precautions, right? Here's one on a Tesla. Here's another one on a Toyota. So ladies and gentlemen, there's tons of these. Here's the next thing. Remember, I told you one of the biggest differences is between an OEM website and the aftermarket providers. Well, you got to know if the vehicle's connected to like telematics. If so, you've got to place that vehicle in service mode before you start to disconnect the vehicle or take it apart, or it's going to send the customer an email. Look right here. I go into Toyota or Lexus's TIS. I put a VIN number in here and I put look up. Look what it says down here, Safety Connect. It's either going to say active or inactive. Ladies and gentlemen, this was on my sister's own personal vehicle. Guess what? When she took it to the body shop, her Safety Connect was actually active. And my sister got 6 emails in one day saying there's a problem with your door, problem with your door, problem with your door, problem with your door. What they should have done is gone into TIS, found out it was active, and they should have actually then used a factory scan tool to place it in service mode first. This is something in all data Mitchell and autotext will not be able to tell you. Look right here. This was shared to me with one of our clients, Will Lattiff at Lattiff Brothers in Minnesota. He said he logged into Irwin. Look, he logs into Volkswagen's factory website. Look what it pops up is. It says this vehicle, based on the VIN number, is equipped with WeConnect or CarNet. Please activate workshop mode. Here's the problem. If you're using some of these third-party solutions, it will not tell you this. And if you don't place it in service mode, your customer is going to get email notifications. And in some places, you may activate the backup battery, and that's a one-time use part. And now you're buying that. So as more and more cars are connected, we're going to have to research with OEM websites because we need to know this information. Let's talk about safety inspections. Now, buckle up, because I'm going to show you all some smoking hot stuff right here. All right, I'm picking up the speed, right? just about every single OEM manufacturer I have ever ran across has a variety of safety inspections that they say that needs to be done on a vehicle. They say if a vehicle's in a collision, you must inspect the seat belts, even if the airbag doesn't deploy. You need to measure the steering columns. You've got to check the steering gear assembly. You got to even check the brake pedals, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you right now that if you were in front of me right now, I'd say, give me an amen if you know what I'm talking about. Let me give you some examples, right? And by the way, these OEM repair procedures for these safety inspections will vary based on OEM year, make, and model. Now, again, this is one of the benefits of like using All Data is All Data attempts to standardize this under repairs and inspections required after a collision. So that's a good thing from All Data. But look right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is a 2018 Jeep Cherokee. Look what it says right here. If the vehicle, and where my cursor is moving, if the vehicle is involved in a front end collision or the airbag is deployed, the steering column must be replaced. Notice it says if it's been in a front end collision or the airbag, not only if the airbag's deployed. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to know how many Jeep Cherokees have been hit in the front end and somebody replaced the steering column. And you notice right here, the Fiat Chrysler says must be replaced, not recommended, right? Let's look right here. Let me give you an example. This is a 2018 Chevy Silverado. This is actual pictures. This is from a friend of mine, Tim Papp, that owns a body shop called Papp Auto Body in Illinois. This GM Silverado was hit in the front end. You see the hood smashed, right? The airbag did deploy. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. When you research the home repair procedures on this Chevy Silverado, the first thing it said you need to do is the steering column. Inspect the steering column for bending, twisting, buckling, or any type of damage if the vehicle's been in an accident, even if the airbag did not deploy. And then, ladies and gentlemen, let me play this video for you right here. Check this video out, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 4-page document of things I'm supposed to look at if that specific Chevy Silverado is in an accident. A 4-page document of all the things that I'm supposed to look at, and I'm fast forwarding this. What does it tell me I need to do, ladies and gentlemen? It tells me I need to check the brake pedal for bend or twist. It tells me I need to check the A-pillar grab handle. It tells me I need to remove the headliner, and I need to look at the headliner mounting locations. I need to look at the seat tracks. I got to look at the seat belts. And guess what else it tells me? It says I need to R&I the dash and inspect the dash carrier. Well, guess what? It's a good thing Tim Papp did that. You know why? Because look right here. The dash carrier was broken. Think about if he would not have done that. He never would have found this. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why I'm saying there's a pandemic in our industry that is greater than the coronavirus or COVID, is that people are not researching on repair procedures. And it scares me to think about how many GM products are riding around with broken dash intrusion carriers because nobody did the work. Look at Ford. Ford says, look at all the things you got to do if a Ford is in an accident. It says if it's in an accident, even if the vehicle airbag does not deploy, you need to inspect all of these things. Mercedes-Benz has examples of things you need to inspect. Look at Subaru. Check this out. Subaru says if a Subaru's in an accident, watch this, everybody. Watch this now. Stay with me. Watch this. 1-page, 2-page, 3-page, 4-page, 5-page, 6-page, 7-page, 8-page. There's a 9-page document of things I'm supposed to look at and inspect if any Subaru's in an accident. And let me just tell you about a little case study we did with steering columns. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a moment. Let's look at Toyota right here. Toyota says, look, if the vehicle's in an accident and the airbag did not deploy, here's all these things that you need to inspect. All these SRS connectors, seat belts, steering columns, right? Toyotas and Lexuses. Let's look at seatbelt inspections. Look what Audi says, right? Here's on an Audi and a Volkswagen. It says that the vehicle's in an says after every accident, seatbelt systems need to be checked. It tells me here's all the things I need to check. And it tells me I need to do a test drive at different braking conditions, a minimum of 5 times. Look at Fiat Chrysler right here. Fiat Chrysler says I need to inspect the seatbelt and I need to inspect the child restraint latch system. This is not a Dodge Ram truck. Nissan Infiniti right here. Need to inspect the seatbelt. There's a visual inspection, and I also have to use the scan tool to make sure the pretensioners aren't collapsed. Here's Porsche, right? After any accident, the seatbelt system must be checked systematically for proper function and damage. And it tells me how to check it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about steering columns. Here's an Audi. Audi says if this specific Audi right here is in an accident, it tells me I need to actually do a visual and a functional check of the steering column, right? Hyundai has an inspection process on a steering column. Nissan Infiniti has an inspection process on a steering column. Look at Subaru. Subaru says I need to check the steering column. I need to measure it. And there's a very specific procedure. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about a case study we did with a shop. We measured 43 steering columns on Subarus, and 11 of the 43 were collapsed. That's 26%. Let me just tell you right now, do you think that's acceptable? Do you think that's acceptable, ladies and gentlemen, that people are not measuring these when we have a 26%? And by the way, why do a lot of these steering columns have to be measured? I'll tell you right now, because they have a plastic collapsible bushing in there that based on the inertia forces, that bushing collapses so the steering wheel doesn't crush the sternum on the passenger. It's designed to do that to protect the passenger or the occupants. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't know what we don't know. So ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about some other final thoughts. You need to save your OEM repair documentation. Why? Because things change. Now, there's several ways to change these, but here's the deal. The worst thing in the world is you end up in court or a third-party payer audits you and says, well, why did you replace this part? Well, here's the document that says this part, this date and time was a one-time use part. Or this is how I was told to replace that part, even though they came out with a sectioning procedure. Save your OEM repair documentation every single time because things change. Now, Tracy, what about if we can't find what we're looking for? We're in all data. We're in Toyota's TIS or Volkswagen or Audi's Irwin. We're in a factory website. We can't find what we're looking for. We can't find a sectioning procedure. We don't understand something. Tracy, what options do we have?
Yeah, you definitely have some options. So you can always reach out to your OEM dealer. See if they're able to help you with the procedure. Many OEM sites have some sort of a feedback button or a feedback form where you can send them information about what you're looking for, or if something's incorrect, they like that too. You can always, if you're a certified collision center, usually there's an email or a phone number or a third-party company that does the auditing, like Verifax or Summit Consulting, that you can reach out to you. Some even have a hotline. So I know Nissan has like an Identifix hotline where you can call up and speak to a certified technician on the other end, and they can help you with a repair procedure. There's always like Ask iCar where you can get information as well. So there's lots of options if you can't find what you're looking for.
Yeah, and there's a great feature on iCar's website called Ask iCar, and they'll reach out to the OEM on your behalf. So, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, there's really no excuse for us not having the resources to do a safe and proper repair. So, Patrice, I know we had 45 minutes. We went over a little bit.
No, you're doing good, Mike. And I have a few questions here that came up through the Q&A. So, yeah, let me go with this one here. So, and I think that I had the same, when I was looking at the presentation, I came to kind of the same conclusion here. So when we say, and then you were mentioning, I think it was the Chevy pickup about replacing the steering column. So a question is, what is a front end collision? What is a front end collision? Because a dent on a bumper, I mean, maybe does not call for a steering column replacement. So what is where is the line where replace is or is that defined in the OE procedures?
Yeah, so that's one of the unfortunately, it's a very big friction point between shops and insurers. Mm-hmm. The OEMs do not put parameters around that currently, and they don't define what is a front end collision or a minor or moderate collision, right? And I will tell you that some of the OEMs, and I won't say their names, but if you research in the trade press, there are some OEMs that have come out and said, yes, even if it's a mirror and it gets damaged, we want these inspections done. Or even if it's just a bumper, we want these inspections done, right? I will tell you again that there needs to be, I do believe it, I really, my heart hurts for shops because our shops trying to do the right thing and the OEM says you need to do this based on an engineer, and then the insurance carriers and third-party payers don't want to pay for it. And then shops are stuck in the middle because if a shop doesn't do it and somebody ever gets hurt, they're liable, right? And then if they do it and the third-party payer doesn't want to pay for it, they're doing it for free. I mean, so right now, the answer is there is no definition from any of the OEMs. But with that said, I will tell you in the United States, we actually have an iCar summit tomorrow about this very specific issue. Mm-hmm. Okay. Center and his team at iCar US, there is a summit and we're going to have insurers and OEMs on there. I can tell you that Tracy and I had the honor and privilege of working with Tino, who is with Fiat Chrysler Automotive in the United States. And they did a webinar for the industry about 2 weeks ago. And they said they're working with the engineers to try to come up with some parameters and some definitions around that. But the short answer is currently, front end collision means even if it gets a bumper, yes. And right now there is not any parameters around that. Do I believe the industry might come up with solutions on that? Yes. Honestly, I would encourage any insurance company that's willing to donate some cars for research that are total losses, where we can start doing some research on this to do it. But right now, the OEM repair procedures say you need to do it. You need to do it, even if it's a front end hit, no matter how much.
Because this leads to another question that I had, and it says, well, I mean, doing this, we're probably going to total a lot more cars doing this. If the car is 5 or 7 years old, that's automatic. I mean, or not automatic, but that maybe those cars won't even be repaired.
Yeah, I mean, it is totaling cars. We're seeing in the United States, some insurers are totaling cars out at 50%. But on the flip side, Patrice, and I just got to say this, on the flip side, what's a life worth, right? If we find that steering column that's collapsed, or that carrier intrusion beam is broken, or the seatbelt protector is collapsed, what's the value of a life? So yes, it is totaling more cars, but as I shared with you, 26% of Subaru steering columns in our case study were collapsed. So I don't think we cannot do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And probably one more question that I had here was about the site where we search for the procedure, comparing the OE sites to the kind of the aftermarket ones. Are they pretty much work all similar, or do they all are different in the way we research the information?
They're all different. The way you're going to research something, so all data will integrate with Mitchell and autotext estimates. So if you're using all data, you really want to use something called All Data Advantage. And all data has a product where you can just manually search stuff, or they have what's called All Data Advantage, which is a data pump. And it grabs an estimate from Mitchell autotext, it analyzes your estimate, and then it gives you all these different icons on the line of your estimate, that tells you here's what you need to know about that specific line. That's why it's important to put every single operation on your estimate, even if it's included, because that might pick up for you and trigger an OEM repair procedure you need to be aware of. But let me give you an example of where experience comes into play, right? So I had a shop that was using all data, and they were going to replace a rocker panel on a General Motors vehicle. And they looked for a sectioning procedure in all data, and they could not find one, so they replaced the entire rocker. The insurance company came back and said, well, we're not paying you to replace the entire rocker. You should have sectioned it. The shop was like, look, there's no sectioning procedure. Well, where the sectioning procedure was at was actually in the doorpost section. So if you didn't know to look in the doorpost section for a sectioning procedure for a rocker, it's just one of those things I would never have known to look there, to be honest with you. So again, Mitchell's Tech Advisor is going to work different than all data, which is going to work different than an OEM website directly.
Yeah. So Mike, Tracy, just in closing here, what would be the message here? What is the message right now in 2021 that we want to tell the collision industry here in Canada about best practices and OE procedures?
Yeah, so I'll go first, and then I'll allow Tracy to make her closing comments. I think number one is not researching OEM repair procedures is not an option. I think we have an obligation to the consumer and to the vehicle owner to perform safe and proper repairs. And I think we got to quit making excuses, and I think we just got to do it. I think for insurance carriers, you've got to recognize that for someone to write an estimate and upload an estimate in 2-hour time frame is not practical anymore. As you can see on a quarter panel job, there's over 400 pages of documents. That's reality. That's just the reality of it. So I think we got to rethink our model. I think thirdly, I think that do I believe some of the OEM repair procedures are to very extreme, like you said, what's a front end collision? I think that insurance companies should not put body shops in the middle and say, we're not paying you to do this when a shop is legally bound or liability bound to do that. And I think the OEMs and the engineers and the insurers and shops, we need to sit together and break bread and come up with some common solutions for everybody. There are some OEMs that have like hold harmless agreements that says, hey, if an insurance company's got to pay for it, have them sign this so we don't get like a warranty claim in the future on it, right? But I think not doing anything is the wrong approach. I think we've got to have positive and professional dialogue. And I think we don't know what we don't know. And so I think we've got to learn to research to learn. I'll turn it over to Tracy.
I mean, I think you hit all the key points. I think the only thing that I would add to what Mike said is we really need to come up with a system within the shops to communicate the information in the repair procedures. It doesn't help if only the estimator knows what's in the repair procedure, right? We really need to make sure that our technicians know what's in there. They know the torque specs. They know, all the ins and outs of what those procedures say. And so there needs to be a way to definitely communicate that information within our shops.
Great point, Tracy.
Okay.
Patrice, I apologize. We ran over, and there was so much to cover on the website, Patrice, that I don't even think we scratched the surface. So if
Yeah,
Tracy,
no, this is fine.
well, if anybody got value from this, and Tracy and I can never get asked back, maybe we can just start to build off of this. But we're grateful for the opportunity.
No, this is great, Mike. I mean, we still have 175 people, 72 now attending. So this is great. And questions keep coming up. One thing I probably want to add, a question was, where can I find the recording of this? This is going to be available on the ccif.ca website. Just give us a few days so we can actually put it in the format that you guys could see. Other than that, Mike, if you want to give me back the sharing right here, I'm just going to bring up one more last slide here. So thank you very much. So thanks, Mike, and thanks, Tracy, again. I mean, this was fantastic job here, guys. Thanks for the information. A lot of things, a lot of stuff, but thanks for sharing the slides, and thanks for sharing, I mean, the knowledge here. I mean, ultimately, we all want to fix cars properly, and this is that's the key point here. So, want to thank you very much for being there. I always appreciate. I know you're busy, so appreciate your time here. So, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Mike, and everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending. It has been recorded. It will be available on the CCIF website. Before we go away, just want to do a last thank you to all of our supporters here. I mean, this would not be possible without them. So thank you very much, all of our sponsors. I mean, especially right now, I mean, it's important, and we appreciate the support here. So big thank you to all of you. And we will be coming up with another series of webinar in more in the end of summer, spring timeframe. So watch the social media or go to the ccif.ca to see the next date. So we'll be working on this very soon. So thanks for attending, and hey, talk to you soon. So thanks, everyone.